This is Radix Radio, where disease is overcome, abundant health awaits, and life is elevated from the pit of despair as we begin living victoriously from above down, inside out. Now, here's your host, Dr. Ryan Betts.
Good morning and welcome to Radix Radio. I am your host, Dr. Ryan Betts, with my colleague, Dr. Justin Stokes, and we are excited to have you with us this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Doc. How are you?
I'm great.
Good. We just had such a great time last week talking about kids and, just interjecting some new ideas on how to raise healthier families and healthier children that, it was so wonderful that we just want to continue that discussion today because there's so much more that we can unpack and unwind and just give you some nuggets of information today. So, I just want to kind of pick right back where we left off at. And one thing that I found this week, Doc, that really jumped out to me, I just found a research study that showed that 65% of the neurological development of a human being, which is the development of our brain and our nervous system, which powers our body, 65% of that development occurs in the child's first year of life. How wild is that?
That's crazy. You see it in babies and 1-year-olds. I mean, they're touching everything. They're looking at everything. Everything gets their attention.
Yeah.
And kind of like what we talked about before, when things are really stimulated, they're forming those neural connections. They're forming those patterns at that time. That's why that first year of life is so integral.
Yeah. And just talking about like everything that they're touching and feeling and looking at, I mean, kind of put yourself in their shoes. You come into this world after being in your mother's womb for, 9.5 months.
Sensory deprivation.
Yeah. You come from this, dark, just liquid-filled environment to now it's like, oh my gosh, there's all this amazing stuff around me.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what any of it means. So, I mean, these little ones are, they're just like, everything is brand new to them. So this is when their body, of course, it would make sense that it's when it's the most neurologically, heightened and when it's developing the most in terms of brain and nervous system function because everything is new. So their bodies are working on overdrive to process all of this new information, whether it's, the sun or light or temperature changes or people,
who mom
talking
and dad
to them,
are.
yeah, or even, the goo goo gaga noises and stuff. I mean, so much of their environment, it's all new. So let's think about this. So if we've got 65% of this development happening in that first year, is it important that we harness the health of that brain and nervous system?
I mean, it's obviously the most important time. It's when they're most in need of making sure that everything is set up to run that program of health from the very beginning.
Yep. Yeah, and the thing is, though, what if they don't follow that program of health in that first year of life?
Well, that's, I think, when we start seeing people go downhill. That's when those ear infections show up. That's when the, tonsillitis and all that immune system isn't processing that, like I said, the program for health from the very beginning.
Yeah, and that program of health that we're on from, the initial stages of life, obviously that we should be following that same program into adulthood. So, even with today's show, we're going to be focusing on kids a lot, but number one, we were all once kids.
Yep.
So think back to your childhood on the things that, your body went through, the challenges that it may have had, the ill health that you may have had, or things that, your family or yourself just may have considered normal, like having ear infections or tubes in the ears because, hey, everybody else has it. Or
strep throat.
Or, hey, I have my, I still thankfully have my tonsils, but what if you're someone who had them, cut out at an early age thinking, well, it's what everybody does, so it's not a big deal, right?
Yeah.
But I want to start to awaken you to see that, like, that's not God's design for the path of health for your body. I mean, those organs are put in there for a reason, not to be cut out, but we need to harness them and we need to keep them as vital as possible. So, again, as an adult thinking back, like, this show's applicable to you too because you walked through these stages of life just like maybe your kids or your grandkids are doing right now. But here's the thing. We can learn lessons. Basically, success leaves clues, right?
Yeah.
Meaning, if you had success with your health, we of course want to impart that to younger generations. Or on the contrary, if you didn't have success as a kid, learning new ways that you could have achieved a higher level of health, we got to take that wisdom and impart it to the current generations too growing up.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going down a bad path with our overall health. I just read an article last night that to 2017, for people under 55, the number one cause of death was drug overdoses.
Yeah.
And it's at its peak. It's its highest point of drug overdoses. And most of them come from opioid derived products. So we start getting dependent, and we start getting used to those painkillers that we were, maybe when you were 20 years old, you grew up and you started using more and more. And I mean, it's as high as it's ever been, and I'm scared to see what 2018 shows up. So as you were talking about, like, what we're going for with the adults is to stop that process. And it's much easier for us to catch them at a younger age, but it's not too late either. If you're on those OxyContin, the Vicodins, the Percocets, things like that, those are the people that we really want to reach out to and help.
Yeah.
And also help your kids not go down that same route that you went down.
Yeah. And even thinking of, more common medications that kids and teenagers and even, younger adults are put on. I mean, even thinking about Ritalin too. Yeah. And the hyperactivity, that is trying to be suppressed with Ritalin and an artificial artificial drug in the body. I mean, that goes right along that same conversation of opioids too, and just how it's become a pandemic in our country, that it's so easy to reach for that, but that's not where the true answer is at.
Well, there's also some research right now, and it's not, I mean, it's really hard to get to that point because we're kind of behind on that, that children that were on Ritalin have a higher likelihood to develop dependence on opioids and other drugs later on in life.
Yeah.
It's something, like, that's why we are very passionate about this topic. That's why we're doing more than one show on it.
Yeah.
Is because we want to catch those kids before they become those adults.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you even said, talking about how Ritalin can open up the doorway to those opioids and more, a whole slew of new medications that the body can be on. I mean, it's a gateway. Yeah. And, but that gate can be shut.
Yes.
It can be shut, and we can reverse the damaging effects that it's already done, or prevent them from happening by, preventing someone from even getting on those things, and just realizing like I even think of, a kid in, let's say elementary school. First of all, I love the teachings of John Eldredge, because he talks about just how boys are designed to be boys, and to take a young man, elementary age, and try to force them to sit in a school desk for 6-7 hours a day is ludicrous. To think that, wow, they can actually sit, because they can be trained and conditioned, but I mean, even like as boys, we're designed to be out in the wild, to be out and adventure and exploring our environment, not to be stuck and forced to sit in a desk. So, but thinking about like just the nature of a man in youth, okay, if you put them in a desk and they're hyperactive or they want to be out and moving, that's by their design, not because they have a condition that now we need to suppress with, different medications or Ritalin or everything. It's just, we need to harness the learning potential of that child, and they're actually going to strive more or thrive more if they're in an environment where they can move a bit more. And I mean, that's because that's how they're designed, not to suppress it.
Yeah, just going back, like, it's funny, we're just kind of hitting all these topics that I've recently read research on.
Yeah.
And there was a study where they put standing desks in elementary schools, and those kids had significantly higher grades and test scores, because they're have more motion. They have just more, they're able to harness that because they're standing instead of just trying to sit still. They're spending so much energy just trying to be good, trying to sit still. It's a tough, I get it. I'm bouncing around right now here in the office, or here in the radio studio.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I've been thinking about it for our own life. Just, I don't like sitting that much. I mean, I like resting in the evening and whatnot, but during the day, get a little antsy if I'm sitting for more than 5-10 minutes. Want to be up, be moving. So even thinking about kids in that manner, I mean, they're designed. We're all in that same program for health.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, again, we can't go into the schools and necessarily make instant changes with getting all kids at stand-up desks and things. And so I know that there's different parameters with that it'd be nice. That'd be an ideal environment. But we got to start looking at it from that other perspective of, okay, since we can't necessarily control like how long they're sitting in school, what can we do with them when they're outside of school? Like, what's their learning environment going to be like? Are they out in nature? Are they exploring? Are they activating their senses by digging in the dirt, by eating mud, by doing all these different things that actually they sound crazy, but they're building health for the body, as opposed to living in a sterile environment where every single thing is wiped down and they're not, coming into contact with any bacteria or any allergen. I mean, that's not, we may think that that's protecting them, but that's not creating an environment where their body is going to grow and develop. And especially in that first year of life, I mean, again, going back to that stat, 65% of our neurological development or formation of our brain and nerve system is in the first year of life. You want your kids to be exposed to so much, especially in that first year and definitely in the first 5 years of life, not keeping them away from things. But I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but I'm even thinking about,
riding with you.
I'm even thinking about like, my son's 5 right now and he hasn't had chicken pox. And I know many of us have heard about pox parties, right? Or chicken pox parties. And I mean, when I was growing up, I don't remember such a thing even being a case. But as we start to know more about science and the development of the human body and the nervous system, it only makes sense that like we want to expose our kids to those things, not because we want them to, not because we like watching them go through and suffer with chickenpox, but we do also need to realize that having them exposed to that at a younger age is going to build a stronger immune system, for example. And try not to keep them away from those things, again, too, like my son's in kindergarten now, and, if there's kids at school that maybe have the sniffles or the cold or whatnot, I'm not thinking, I got to get Tate out of school and get him home and keep him away from that. I'm thinking, no, I want him there because he will be better off in the long run if he goes through the exposure to those things now, rather than being, quarantined from them per se.
Well, you were saying, not being able to make changes right now, like immediately in the school. Yeah. But I mean, we have this format right now. If you're a teacher out there and you want to learn or want to know a little bit more about keeping those kids engaged and more attentive in class, we'd love coming in and meeting with teachers and telling them those things. Absolutely. Yeah. And when it comes to, ADHD, and we talked about the Ritalin, I devoted, 6 months of my academic career to research a non-pharmaceutical treatment of ADHD. I had a personal connection to that. My little brother was going through it, and they wanted to put him on Ritalin. Yeah. And so I spent a long time, finding a protocol that the research backs up that is more effective than that Ritalin. And if you have kids that, the doctor wants to put them on that medication, please contact us. I would love to help and sit down and explain, that it is not your only option.
Yeah, yeah. And again, if you got questions for us, you want to reach out to us. If any of this has piqued your interest and you want to learn more about it, even in your social circles and, having us come out to those or just via email, you can reach us online at radixchiro.com. You can call our office at 719-573-1007. Or you can simply find us at Radix Chiropractic on Instagram or Facebook. Yeah. And again, we're always open. Love fielding questions. We get multiple questions a day, just whether it's from patients in the office or via email. Just wanting to learn how to take strides and just gather information on living a different lifestyle that is going to go more in the direction of building health rather than having our health deteriorate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So want to kind of go back to, talking about neurological development and talking about, okay, if a child's body or even, older ages, if we're not neurologically developing at the rate that we should, or we've kind of missed a step along the way, where did that come from? How can we learn from that so we can impart, better knowledge into the youth of today, right? And so when we're talking about nerve dysfunction, like what causes it, let me just share some stats I found in an amazing book called Well-Adjusted Babies. It says, on average, a child before the age of 7 will fall about 2,500 times and before the age of 3 will have 3 major falls, either off a changing table, off a cot, or down a flight of stairs. That's crazy. Kind of.
Yeah, I could see it.
It's staggering. I mean, showing that, kids before the age of 7 are going to fall 2,500 times. Yeah. That's a lot.
Well, you've seen those toddlers run around the office. They
Yeah.
don't really pay attention to where they're headed.
They bonk into things. And a lot of those falls are, especially as, a child's learning to walk, they pull themselves up, they're holding onto a stool or a chair or something, kind of wiggling, getting their, legs, getting themselves about with their legs. And what do? They fall straight backwards right on their bum, right?
Yep.
And again, causing neurological dysfunction because that stress goes straight up the spine, can cause shifts or misalignments in the spine, which then put pressure on the nerves and start that dysfunction process. And last stat in this little study here too said it is estimated that 47.9% of children will land on their head in their first year of life.
It's not funny, but it's kind of.
But it's crazy. I mean, half of the kids out there are falling on their head in their first year of life.
Yeah.
Now compare that with the other stats of the changing table and stuff. Maybe that could be off the changing table. Mm-hmm. I know I've had parents rush their kids into me.
Yeah.
Kid fell off the changing table, maybe just got adjusted a couple days ago and was like, oh my gosh, this happened, 2 hours after we got home from the adjustment. Can you check them? I check them, and without a doubt, or no surprise to me, they're resubluxated, spine's back out of alignment from a fall. But again, those are parents that are already bringing their kids in.
Yeah.
Think of how many parents, aren't aware of the damaging effects that these falls have on, a young developing spine. And what's the first thing we do when the kid falls off the changing table or off whatever? They start to cry. So of course we console them, calm them down. But then the next thing we do is we look them over, make sure that there's no scratches, no bumps, no bruises. And at that point, though, that's about all our culture teaches us to do in terms of you evaluate the external body by seeing, is anything broken, anything bleeding? If not, we just kind of let them rest and think, okay, well, they must be fine. But I tell you, man, that word fine it's going down a difficult path because when we term something fine, we're not thinking about what's going on below the surface.
Yeah, when you ask somebody about their day and they say it was fine, probably wasn't good.
No, you got to dig a little deeper than that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even though, that's a great point to make, thinking about just how easy it is to, tell somebody, oh, I'm doing good, doing fine.
Yeah.
When in fact, we know in our hearts, like, man, there's a lot more going on in there. I'm just not willing to reveal it.
Yeah.
Or I don't feel like this is a safe place maybe to reveal it.
Yeah.
That's talking emotional health. We're just talking and bringing that same understanding and thought process into physical health now.
Yeah.
That, the body on the outside may be fine, but what's going on at the deeper levels, in the muscles, in the spine, in the nerve system, that's where a lot of damaging effects happen. And it really to the point of, as adults, most of the issues our body goes through, not only, physically, but emotionally and chemically too, began in those early years of life. And all these, again, those stats, those things we went through as kids started back then.
Yeah. That's what, starting from the beginning is what we're all talking about today is catching that before that becomes that issue later on in life where we become dependent on outside forces. So let's get that body strong from the beginning. Let it handle those external forces. Make the innate intelligence in the body stronger than the outside world.
Yeah. And, the reason why we, have such knowledge about this too, I mean, both you and I, we've got over 20 years experience combined, taking care of families. And now at Radix, I mean, we're a family practice. So, we not only see the moms and dads, but we see the kiddos, the grandparents, the newborns, everybody. I mean, most of the time when we sit down with someone and share with them the power of chiropractic and also the power of living this different lifestyle and show proof that it works. And, from testimony upon testimony, on that we have on Google and in the office and I mean, from all over the place, the proof is in the pudding, right?
Mm-hmm.
That this is a different way of living, but it gets different outcomes. It gets different results, ones that are, sought after by a lot of people once they're made aware of it. So then, like, I may sit down with a mom on the first visit and just talking about her, but then sharing like, oh my gosh, this stuff began when you were a child. Think about your kids now. How can you help to get them on a better road to health than what you've been on? Again, that's what we're after. That's what our focus is to impart that wisdom down to younger generations.
Yeah.
So that, and then it just spreads like wildfire. It's like, well, of course I'm going to get my kids checked to see how their nerve system's doing. Mine's doing crummy, so I want to make sure theirs doesn't get to this point.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's how we build stronger communities too. We
Without a
start
doubt.
from the
Yeah.
we start from the ground up, and we keep those kids healthy through the rest of their life.
Yep.
Man, that makes a stronger community. That makes a healthier community, and then that just ripples out. And that's our vision. That's what we want to see.
Yeah. And literally, I think of it like a health revolution. Like we are, through love and compassion and just being here to help, we want to make a difference and just have it spread and really evolve our culture.
Yeah.
And, I know chiropractic's on the forefront of doing that along with some other holistic approaches. It's just creating, that awareness and that understanding too.
Yeah.
And there's I don't know have you ever seen the movie Patch Adams?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you got to watch Patch Adams.
Okay.
Patch Adams, played by Robin Williams in the movie, but just a phenomenal story about I forget what he was going through when he was in his 20s or whatever. But life was kind of going nowhere. The part of the early part of the movie shows him going to the medicine cabinet, just overdosing his body, and he has an awakening and realizes like this isn't the path he was designed to go on. He's not happy. So he devoted his life to becoming a medical doctor, but Patch is someone, he opened up what's called the Gesundheit Institute up in Minnesota. Pretty sure it's in Minnesota. But it's a free healthcare clinic, but his whole approach is to get people healthier through love and happiness and enjoying life and, taking care of people with no strings attached, but also recognizing that like we don't need to go down this medical route all the time of, just drugging the body or cutting pieces and parts out, but through caring for someone and showing appreciation, like the body has the ability to begin healing itself. And he's got a quote in this book that I was reading, and it says, "Health is more than a disease-free interlude. To be healthy is a body toned to maximum performance potential, a clear mind exploding with wonder and curiosity, and a spirit at peace with the world."
That's pretty awesome.
I love the end of that. Just a clear mind exploding with wonder and curiosity. I mean, that just speaks to like the inner child that's in all of us, right? But let's look at the first part of that. Clear mind.
Mm-hmm.
How do we have a clear mind?
We got to have a clear nervous system.
Exactly. And then having a clear nervous system allows us to better cope with the stresses that we're, again, from newborn infancy all the way up in adulthood. We have a clear mind, we have a clear ability to adapt to stresses, and then that just opens up this whole new world, as he says, exploding with wonder and curiosity, because then you're going into this life, without any hindrances, without any, strongholds against you, and you can begin just absorbing everything that God created for us to experience and touch and enjoy.
Well, and that's kind of when we talk about these medications, sometimes, I mean, it's basically like a bubble surrounding you away from the outside world. Like it's an artificial disconnection. And
it's no way to live.
Yeah. And that's really, I think we talked about that in our very first episode, is that we want to develop more connection with your body, with the world, so you can connect with more people. And that's how it all, ties in, why this is so important to us.
Yeah. And in order to connect with the world around you, with the things around you, with the people around you, you got to first have connection from within.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Our body has to be neurologically connected. Brain has to be fully talking to the body so we can then experience the maximum life possible. Yeah. And I mean, that's what chiropractic does for you. That's what this holistic, this alternative way of living does for you. Yeah. To not be medicated, to not be just going through the world, kind of in this zombie state of just trying to get through each day, but actually experiencing all that the world has to offer and all that God created us for.
Your full God-given potential.
Exactly. I love it. I love it. Man, I love these conversations. I love this topic especially.
Yeah.
Just love imparting hope into people too. So hopefully you got something out of today's episode. Hopefully this sparked an interest to, curiosity of like, wonder what else is out there for me. Wonder what else is out there for my family. So again, we would love to hear from you. Reach out to us, 719-573-1007, or look us up online at Radix Chiropractic or radixchiro.com, the website, or just search us on Google, Facebook, or Instagram. So, Doc, time flew by.
It did.
Can't wait to dive into what we're going to go into next week. We'll keep you on the edge of your seat for that one as we kind of see what the response is from this week's show.
Yeah.
And
give your kids the gift of health here in this holiday season.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Great thought. So, again, thank you all for joining us this week. Have a blessed weekend.
You can find out more on today's show by visiting their website, radixchiro.com, or following Radix Chiropractic on Facebook or Instagram. Thanks for listening.